Welcome to PolyCast, a civilization podcast focused on game strategy.
Canis Albinus,
Makahlua,
TheMeInTeam,
MegaBearsFan.
Okay, so while he's checking that, Mackie, I guess you and I should talk so that he actually has something to hear.
Something. Welcome to PolyCast episode 425. I'm Makahlua, and with me today, MegaBearsFan.
I might have a baby on my lap, so if anybody hears any goo-goos, gagas, or other gibberish, that is why.
And TheMeInTeam.
I have nothing. Nothing at all.
This podcast ought to be sponsored by a certain coffee chain with a mermaid in their logo, but we don't get sponsored, so oh well, I still have to pay for my coffee.
Yeah, as it turns out. I think we should demand sponsors.
And I do not,
force if necessary.
and I do not drink coffee on the grounds that I find it morally offensive, because it enables employers to think that it is acceptable to wake us up at 6 a.m. to go to work.
Listen to him. He says he doesn't drink coffee, and then the first thing he talks about are grounds.
Well, it has to be ground at some point, or it doesn't work well.
Now, speaking of coffee, this will happen if you don't have coffee, and you can't have coffee in the game. Why is War Weariness So Weak by Miserable Old Gint? I like the name for this particular topic. As a Civ 4 player, I do recall War Weariness being quite impactful a decade ago. So, well, more than a decade now. But I was still playing Civ 4. Yeah. So yeah, his poster's been saying, been permanently at war, several civs at the same time for 120 turns, and in that time captured and occupied 53 cities, as well as raised a similar number and freed a few city-states. 62 cities is no War Weariness. Okay. So there is some information being left out here, like what kind of losses this player has taken, because I think that is a significant contributor to War Weariness. And there's also just the question of how much War Weariness should matter in a Civ game, because I don't miss it, really. Personally, especially because in Civ 4, the AI couldn't handle it at all, and basically the player was the only one who ever had to deal with it.
Yeah, if you're running through and curb stomping somebody, no, your citizens don't care. If you're having one of those really grindy wars, and you're losing units right, left, front, center, then they start caring. But it's still not anywhere like it.
Yeah, just from a design standpoint, like, it doesn't make much sense for it when you're winning, and if you're losing, in terms of gameplay mechanics, do you really want the side that's already losing to just, like, fall over?
So to play devil's advocate, I think that the major function that War Weariness serves, since it doesn't do much in the way of being a check against, overly aggressive players, is it is a mechanism that hypothetically would put an end to, like, ongoing stalemate wars. So you got yourself in a quagmire, neither side is really winning, this war is dragging on for tens or heck dozens or hundreds of turns. Without War Weariness, there wouldn't really ever be any reason for either Civ to ever sue for peace if they haven't, like, achieved their goals or aren't just being completely curb stomped. So I think War Weariness does have a value in the game in that regard, that it would be something that would make sure that wars come to prompt conclusions and don't just drag on forever.
Huh. I mean, that's how it's implemented in, like, say, EU4. You will eventually get call for peace or whatever, and you have war exhaustion as a mechanic. And that actually has significant impacts on your economy. But in Civ 6, I don't know, like, if you're not doing anything that generates War Weariness, then what's the difference between that and being at peace? Because we have technically had that a couple times in actual history, where technically the nations didn't make peace, but all of the troops stopped fighting.
Well, the United States is currently in that state with North Korea. There was an armistice, a ceasefire, but there was no formal peace. We are still technically in the Korean War.
Yeah.
Which is
I was thinking of like the Japan and USSR or whatever prior to. But the way the game handles the ceasefires, that if you just go back to peace, but you can just declare war immediately if you want. There's no like treaty enforcement.
Well, I think both Civ 5 and Civ 6 have like a 10-turn cooldown before you're allowed to declare war after a peace treaty.
I thought that was contingent on it actually being a peace treaty, though, and not just a ceasefire. Maybe I'm misremembering that.
Well, hold on. Does Civ 5 or 6 have a ceasefire?
I think that's from something else. I don't know.
That's from Civ 4. Okay. Well, then we don't have a ceasefire. But, like, what's the point then? If you're not... I mean, I guess you could put a war weariness mechanic back in the game, but if you're not accruing it, then there's not much benefit/difference between being in ceasefire versus being at war. You're either just attacking the other person or you're not at that stage. It's not like you need to give them any warning or do anything to switch from ceasefire to war. So if the other person's putting units on their border, then you probably should too.
Yeah, it just seems like from 5 and into 6, they swung way too far one way in 5 and kind of went the other way in 6. Although I suppose loyalty kind of works similar in that it's harder to hold that when you're at your front lines until you like take over a capital or something like that. But it's still not that punishing.
It's not really representative of how the war is going for your people or your economy, because loyalty is more like how easily you're getting the conquered populace to accept you. Because you can lose cities to loyalty without ever fighting, and you can like take cities in a way where loyalty is instantly solved.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've talked about in the past is you just take like 3 cities at a time, like get all of their defenses down to 0, and then, wait until all their defenses are down to 0, and then just take them all on the same turn so they reinforce each other.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be the same turn. It's supposed to be within like 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah, within a couple turns. Because, I mean, if it's especially if it's, you're crossing an ocean, I mean, those cities will flip back in a matter of 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah, I think it's 3 if you have absolutely nothing trying to offset the...
Well, I'm sure it also depends
-20.
on game speed, so I don't know if you're one of the players who plays all your games on Marathon, maybe it's like 20 turns, I don't know.
Oh, I admit I haven't played Marathon, but that seems like it would be... It would trivialize the mechanic, because you'd have way too much time to react.
Yeah.
But, like, Marathon's always been that way, to be fair, with most stuff.
Yeah, I used to play a lot of my Civ 4 games on Marathon, but, then I got older and got a job and now have kids, and now I just don't have time to play Marathon-length games. I barely have time to play the normal-length games.
I think Marathon only added, like, a half hour to me in Civ 4, maybe an hour. I think it's a half hour, something in that neighborhood.
Well, I think Epic is supposed to, double the turn count of normal, and then Marathon doubles it again? Or is it Marathon is half as much and...
Marathon is double.
Epic is
from normal.
Epic is half as much and Marathon is double.
Yeah, Epic's 1.5. Yeah.
Oralesk does point out further down is for your cities, there's a maximum negative amenities you can have from War Weariness, which scales with population. But it's the ones you conquer can have quadruple or something like that. So he's pointing out, if you lost a lot of units to get that city, you're going to have a hard time to continue the conquest. It's going to get hit by the loyalty from all the negative around there. So there's some in there. It's just it needs to be slightly stronger to actually make a impact on a player. Not that we probably won't find a workaround, but there's not enough of a downside from War Weariness to just keep the war going. Because there's a lot of times, even in multiplayer, when cooperative multiplayer that I play, that I just don't bother ending the war. I just let them sit there and do the war because I can keep amenities going. My cities aren't hit as bad, and I can just sit there and wait, let them come to me, and then go roll over them. So, I shouldn't be able to do that so easily.
I think there's a few other factors to consider here, too, when it comes to Civ, because War Weariness as a concept evolves throughout history pretty significantly.
Yeah, it really depends on your type of government, whether the population should what the population thinks should matter. Like, obviously, if you're in a later game democratic government, like, it matters a lot. I mean, we've had Civ games in the past where the Senate could just veto your decision to go to war. I don't know if they could end the war prematurely. Could they do that too in Civ 2?
You could be forced out, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're in like a authoritarian government or like a feudalist state where there's a monarch, an absolute monarch, like, who cares? The monarch's going to fight the war for as long as they want. I mean, if the worst thing that could happen in a situation like that is your actual troops lose morale, and then, the war goes south. And Civ doesn't have any mechanics for troop morale. Like, your warrior isn't going to decide, I don't want to fight anymore.
You've stranded your poor warrior on the other side of the planet, but he still has great morale.
Yeah, well, and he's also 4,000 years old, so...
Yeah.
I mean, monarchs could get replaced by nobility and such if they really pissed them off, but you had to go pretty extreme. It happens, though.
And I mean, there could always be the risk of an outright populist revolt, right? I mean, that would be the one thing, but up until that point, like, the monarch doesn't really care. I mean, unless they're, like, one of those, like, rare, really good monarchs who actually, like, gives a damn about the subjects that they rule and, takes that sort of stuff into consideration, but those don't seem to be very common throughout history. They pretty much do what they want.
I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, honestly, because the monarchs did care insofar, like, they didn't want their people campaigning when they would otherwise be producing food, for example, because that you hit the limits of what you can actually sustain then.
Right. Well,
even big nations like the Ottomans had issues with just how far their military could operate because they had to, like, take people and move them.
Well, what I meant is I don't think that there's too many monarchs that, like, care much about what the population thinks from, like, an empathy, ethical or moral standpoint. But yeah, as far as, as long as they're paying their taxes and providing the grain that we need to feed our armies, if that stuff stops, then yes, they do start caring. If the populace is so upset they're not paying their taxes, they're like, well, what's the king going to do? The whole army's out 4 countries away. It's not. What are they going to do to me?
Yeah, well, there's that too. And that would probably be the best way to model it at the scale of Civ, would be to have, like, a war economy versus a non-war economy type of setup, and have the war economy be less desirable.
Yeah, I mean, they could have mechanics where, like, some percentage of the food that your cities generate actually does have to go to feeding and sustaining an army in addition to, or instead of, the gold maintenance cost. And if war weariness does get out of control and people start, for lack of a better word, going on strike, you lose food, your armies, like, can't heal, or they start taking automatic damage per turn, or you got to start disbanding troops or whatever, that would definitely be impactful. But then the question is, can the AI handle that?
Probably not, and it would not be a good model of warfare for most of history that Civ covers, when, like, armies were very frequently just sourcing, quote-unquote, resources from hostile territory.
Well, but yeah, I mean, that would be one way to get around that, but that also would slightly change the dynamics of war and civilization, because you wouldn't necessarily be able to just go in and capture, enemy cities intact and, like, immediately start taking advantage of that yield. If you are struggling with your wartime economy, where your armies have to live off of pillaging the land, then what you capture isn't going to be as valuable, and that would influence people's decisions to go to war to begin with, and also to maintain a war that maybe isn't going so well. Because, when you're invading cities in Civ, usually it's because you want the stuff that's in them, and if you're going to have to burn it all to the ground just to feed your army in order to capture that city, well, then, maybe you hold off on that war until you're in a better situation.
It'll regrow. And that's the problem. Like, Civ is operating on timescales where tactical considerations are almost nonsensical. It's so hard to do it right. Because, like, an army will die if it doesn't have water within, like, a couple days. If it doesn't have food, like, gosh, like, you you can survive, like, up to a month without food, but your soldiers probably won't be sticking around for that.
Well, and even if they did, they're not going to be very effective fighters.
They won't be combat capable. But, like, water is insane. Like, you won't even last a week. It won't even be close to a week. If you just have, like, no water, you're screwed immediately.
I don't know the numbers, but I would have to imagine that, like, a Roman legion was probably eating somewhere on the order of, like, 5,000 calories a day.
I doubt that high.
When they're fighting.
I doubt that high. One, you wouldn't be able to sustain it. Like, you just wouldn't have the resources to be able to give that to everyone. And two, that's a lot of calories.
Yeah, maybe
like, even if you're wearing equipment and exercising pretty heavily, which combat would be, of course, like, that's like bodybuilders trying to maintain their insane frames, or, like, 300-pound linemen will eat calories in that range. Like,
Yeah, okay, so
I don't think that describes a Roman soldier.
maybe not that high, but certainly more than the 2,000 calorie average that, us sitting in chairs all day are recommended to eat.
Yeah, I think the MREs they send on different countries' military, 2,500 to 3,000, depending. A little bit more for cold weather.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable if you're like doing stuff every day.
But
anyway, yeah, like we're talking tactics stuff in a game where like a turn goes 20 years.
Yeah.
So like,
20
the army would have had to solve basic logistics like more than 20 times over, probably, just to move from one tile to the next in the game. Which, in historical terms, is ridiculous. Like, even the most ancient armies we can record would march like way faster than in Civ 6 or Civ 5 or Civ 4 or any Civ. And that's really true even into the modern era. Like, moving however far like an infantry can move in a turn, even a mechanized infantry, it's insane. A turn is like half a year. Like, if an army's unopposed, it could cover continents in that time frame.
And entire wars can be fought in that time frame.
Yeah, started and finished. Yeah, although usually that's an optimistic estimation of war. It can go quickly and
well, I mean, just looking at U.S. history, I mean, like every like actual combat war that has been fought in all of U.S. history has been like they've all been 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, certainly. There's nothing like the 30 Years' War for U.S.
But another thing that Civ just doesn't model is like it doesn't do a great job of just modeling like human suffering in general. So like you don't really have mechanics where the population of a civilization is really like feels like it's made up of people to begin with. So the war weariness stuff always feels kind of tacked on because it's one of the few times where like the population actually responds in any way at all to what the player or the leader of the Civ is doing. And I mean, I wouldn't mind having more robust, for lack of a better word, simulation of the population where popular opinion is actually something that does have to be managed, throughout the entire game and not just during war. And I think if there were systems like that in play, war weariness would probably make more sense because you'd be doing that during times of peace as well. It would just be
We've got amenities.
Yeah, but it's so. I mean, but it's again. You look back at like some of the things that Civ 4 was doing, and Civ 4 had things like individual workers would go on strike and refuse to work if they were unhappy. And, they had things like different percentages of your population would actually have different demographic categories. And they might get upset with you if you were, say, having negative diplomatic relations or were at war with the civ that, they come from. So if you capture a city or you have a city built on a border with another civ, like half your population might be native, ethnically from that bordering civ. And if you declare war on that civ, that half of that city's population is going to be very upset. And you'll get that little, we are at war with our motherland or whatever thing that would negatively affect the city.
Now, to be fair, we have loyalty in Civ 6, and high versus low amenities has a significant influence on the productivity of the city, which amounts to the same thing as having, like, one worker not doing something or two workers not doing something, depending on how severely you're taking or the penalties versus getting benefits. So, like, that system is still being modeled in Civ 6 just differently. And I don't even know if the mechanical difference is that different. Is that like high between the two games on average? Like, War Weariness could really screw you in Civ 4. Like, if you're fighting in a statue of Zeus and you're losing, like, 50 units or something, then yeah, you're going to see negative consequences far beyond what I've ever observed in Civ 6. That said, most of the time, you don't fight that way in Civ 4. Like, that's ridiculous. You really want to try to avoid doing that. So, in practice, what you're losing in productivity in Civ 4 is usually pretty similar to Civ 6, especially when you factor in the ability to whip down your population to put the unhappy faces to work and stuff like that. Like, that'll solve the happiness issue. We'll just kill them.
Well, I think what part of what he's also asking for here is, I mean, what Jason is asking for, is a more human model of it, or some way to model the human reaction. Like, miserable little git is going around. He said he's captured and occupied 53 cities and raised almost as many. If you had somebody going around raising cities in real life and you were part of that empire, you might be horrified. Unless you're the Mongols, maybe. But the people around you would also be horrified, too.
The Mongols did exactly that. Now, and I don't know that we saw that big of a negative consequence for them in their own domestic empire.
Yeah,
like,
but
they only had instability when he died.
But that could vary from, faction to faction.
Culture
I mean,
to culture.
and also, like, depending on...
First of all, why would you pick a culture that would get negative consequences when you could pick a culture like that? And second of all, like, the vast majority of history would be closer to Genghis Khan than like open revolt over successful military conquest, even if you're committing absolute atrocities. Like, people at home might not even hear about it, let alone care that much.
Sure, but I mean, it could also be something where maybe those sorts of things become more a part of the game, later. Like, you get into the Renaissance era, and then, popular opinion and committing war crimes and atrocities then starts to become, something that the public... Because there's also the issue of when you're talking about, ancient history, the general population has no clue what's going on. They just know a war is being fought somewhere, and maybe we're winning, maybe we're losing, and if we win, then the army's going to come back with, boatloads of gold, and we're going to be rich. And if they don't, all our brothers and sons are, just dead somewhere. But there's nothing we can do about it.
Counterpoint for Renaissance, the Spanish handling of Inca.
I mean, yeah, sure.
They had their problems domestically, but I don't think there's very much unrest over their conduct in Inca. But
Spain today, if they were doing something like that, that would be all over the news. There would be people blogging on it, and everybody be going,
sure.
Spain,
we're no longer the Renaissance, though. So, like, we'd have to implement this after the Renaissance. Like, probably after the Industrial Revolution, if we're honest.
Yeah, for the later eras in the game, the more atrocities, like bigger war weariness or something like that. But then we still go back to, we need a war weariness thing that's going to work better.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, Civ has, like, techs and civics in the game for things like humanism and liberalism and the Enlightenment and stuff like that. So, it would be kind of neat, maybe, if researching those things, inventing those concepts actually makes the people within the game start to think along those lines. It'd be a gradual process. I mean, it wouldn't happen necessarily overnight, but...
All right, AI, you research that. I'll research rifles and cannons. And then I'll pick that up later.
Well, I forget which it was. I think it was in Civ 4. Was it liberalism that was a gateway to a bunch of other tech, so you had to go through it even if you wanted to war?
Eventually.
Yeah.
I remember there
was... The thing is, like, it was a gateway to, like, later techs, because it was like a precursor to the center path, which included things like physics and whatnot. So you weren't going to get, like, artillery if you didn't pick up liberalism. However, that didn't stop you from getting cannons and rifles. So, like, you could get cannons and rifles before you picked up the democracy and republic path. You could get them before, like, I think you could get them before education. So, like, if you somehow had the research capacity without researching those things, like, you could fight for quite some time. And then God help the world, once you start making vassals of nations and, like, trade brokering, if those things are on, then you could just, like, have the AI carry your research forever while you just, like, go for military stuff, and then eventually you get those things anyway. But that's not how most people played, because it was more efficient to just get the tech lead and then roll over everything instantly.
Well, speaking of getting things rolling, so to speak, GameRant's done a little series about first things you should do, or some tips in different eras. So the first one being, obviously, the ancient era. So different in the order you're supposed to do them in, because what was it? It was go hunt barbs and build an army. No, wait, it doesn't go in that order, guys.
Well, it's a GameRant article, so there's lots of problems. First and foremost is that it's not really maybe the best article. A lot of GameRant stuff is just fillery fluff pieces, and this definitely seems to fall into that category where it's just whoever is their resident Civ player just wrote something real quick so they'd have something to publish that day. But also, like, the post is titled, at least in the URL, 6 Best Things to Do in the Ancient Era, but yet there's 8 items And it's structured as a countdown, right? It starts at 8 at the top and goes down to 1 at the bottom. But if you follow them in that order, like, it does not make sense.
It's not possible in that order. Like you can't.
Like number 6 should be 1. Train a scout and get exploring.
You start with a scout, though.
Well, I mean,
you scout with a warrior.
Yeah, that's your scout.
Well, some of us build scouts, you know.
Yeah, I actually build scouts too, but your starting warrior is a scout as well.
We want Scouty McScoutface, not just kind of scout.
Yeah, but the most egregious thing that I noticed was number 4 is establish a base army, right? But then number 2, which, if this is like a countdown of priority, is something you should do before number 4, is take down barbarians. And I don't know about your guys' Civ 6 play experience, but if you go after the barbarians before you've built an army, you are probably going to be in trouble. Like, if you just send your starting warrior and maybe your scout after the barbarians, you're A, not exploring anything, but B, probably getting them killed and then have nothing to defend your capital city from more barbarians or from some rando opponent civilization scout that just wanders up to your capital. I mean, they can't just walk into it.
Combat bonuses, you might be able to pull it off, like on low difficulties. Right?
You can, but it's not something I would ever recommend. I would say at the very least, you should have a warrior and a slinger if you're going to go take out a barbarian. At the very least, ideally, you should probably have 2 warriors or more, so that your slinger doesn't just get squashed as soon as that barbarian encampment spawns a spearman.
And you can't go in the other sequence either, because while building more cities is reasonable, I don't think it's literally the first thing you do, and the second thing you do would not be establishing trade routes. I mean, that'd be nice.
We have to have the other cities to establish the trade routes to, or at least some city-states, which we have to explore to go find.
Well, plus you need, like, some tech for that. So you're going to be doing some of these other things before establishing trade routes, unless, like, something's going horribly wrong in your game. Like, I can't imagine that being the second thing I do ever.
Anyway, we should probably actually count down all of them.
Yeah. Now, for most of these, it is broadly good to do them at some point in the ancient era. So it's build more cities, establish trade routes, train a scout, get exploring, and search for tribal villages, establish a base army, train lots of builders, which I don't necessarily agree with doing that right away, take down barbarians, and work towards a religion. Again, I don't necessarily...
Well, and again,
religion, although Pantheon's reasonable.
Because it's like I said, most likely just a fluff piece that someone slapped together in like an hour just so they would have something to publish. Most of these are things that you're going to be doing anyway. Like, none of these are like really tips beyond just, here is how you play the
this
opening.
Looks like it's structured for a true beginner too. Like,
yeah, I was going to say, this is for somebody who's only played like 1 or 2 games.
If that's the case, it's even more important to put them in an order that would be helpful to a beginner to do.
Yeah.
Where number 1 is not found a religion, because, like, honestly, if you're a beginner, that's probably something that you should not even prioritize at all. And if you are playing at a higher level, like, unless you are playing with one of the civs that specializes towards founding a religion, like, you might as well not even bother, because you're not going to get one.
Individually, if you're starting out in Civ, these are good ideas to do. They just somebody needed to take an extra 10 minutes in order to put this in the right order.
I mean, what's funny is it almost seems like the optimal order to do these things in is kind of from the middle of the group out. Like, you should start with building scout, building military units, exploring for goodie huts, like 4 or 5. Items 3, 4, 5, or whatever. 4, 5, 6. Then,
if you're playing with them on, they're most impactful early on, the tribal villages.
Right. Then you build more cities and do trade routes and work on a religion, if you want to work on a religion.
And once you have
I think it should just say get a pantheon. Like, a religion is situational, but a pantheon is usually pretty good to pick up.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because you might want to prioritize a little extra religion right at the beginning, so you could pick up religious settlements, and then boom, you've got your second city a heck of a lot earlier than you would have, and earlier than the AI is going to, unless you're playing at a level where they start with the extra settler, and that's
they'll pick that before you can. Lol.
A lot of times they'll still get it before you, but then it'll snowball for you later in the game. Crazy as it sounds, having the extra city sooner, but yes, that's how it works. Turn based.
But there's also, like, nothing about or really not much at all about where should you build your cities. You know, how many cities should you build? How are you going to manage loyalty? How do you defend those cities? Where should you send your trade routes to? Should you do domestic trade routes? Should you prioritize foreign trade routes? It's just like, do these things, and then there's 2 sentences explaining like why doing that thing is vaguely generally a good thing to do.
I don't see anything here about conquering other civs. Weird.
Well, they did get step 1 correct, which is build units.
Yeah, you do need units to conquer other civs.
Which is item alpha and omega on Phil's list of how to play the ancient era.
He might throw cities in there too. He needs more places to build units.
Yeah. And frankly, like, the building units is only half. That can't be alpha and omega. The actually using them has to be the important second part.
Well, if you build enough of them, you'll run out of space in your borders to put them, which means they'll have to be stationed in enemy territory, at which point they will be doing things.
But they can probably take the enemy territory, so you can build more units sooner if you mobilize them prior to that, in my experience.
Yeah. But anyway, I didn't see posts about the classical era or medieval era. I don't know if they wrote corresponding ones.
They don't count, lol.
Yeah, so I guess you don't have to
skip these.
You don't have to do anything in the classical and medieval eras. Like, you know, getting access to swordsmen and catapults, those don't do anything at all for the game. Instead, you need to concentrate on what to do in the industrial era. And once again, it's titled... well, actually, okay, you know what? Here, I guess it's not titled 6 things. It just says Civilization 6. That was my mistake. I read that wrong. But yeah, so they've got 7 items now on things that you should do in not industrial. Wait, is this industrial?
Yeah.
Yes, industrial era. Yeah, sorry. I got confused for a moment about whether it was the Renaissance or industrial. So number 7 is start working towards victory requirements. Number 6 is build new military units. So again, Phil approved step 6. Power up cities with power plants. Okay, sure. Upgrade roads to railroads. Yeah, that actually is maybe the one like actually genuinely good tip that all of these provide. 3 is boost army strength with corps and fleets. 2 is expand housing with neighborhoods. And 1 is start unearthing artifacts with archaeologists. And okay, now I guess we can go back through and talk about how ridiculous some of these are.
Just the first one, start working towards victory requirements. Depending on which one you're working on, you should have started in the ancient era.
Yeah, and this is another thing where, like, who's the audience for this post? Because if these are absolute beginners, you're going to stumble onto a victory without really even thinking about it anyway. Probably. If you're an experienced player or you're playing on a higher difficulty, like any difficulty level above, I think the default in Civ 6 is what? Noble, right? Or Prince? Whatever the default, normal difficulty setting is, if you're playing above that, you probably need to be thinking about victory before you get to the industrial era.
No, there's also terminal versus instrumental goals, because there are many things you do in Civ that contribute to winning no matter what you pick.
Yeah, well, but Civ 6 in particular, because of like the districts and stuff, like if you're going for a science or culture victory in particular, and especially a religion victory, because that can actually be won like halfway through the game compared to the others, you need to be building that infrastructure, and you need to be building it early. And if you get to the industrial era and you're suddenly like, I want to go for a science victory, and then you start building campuses, you're going to be in trouble. I mean, for one thing, another player is probably already in the information era. If you waited that long.
Into the industrial era, so you're still alive.
Yeah, true.
And you built something, so you could probably work with something. Probably. Well, plus, like, science unlocks a lot for you, right? Like, it's not just a science victory. Like, you can use more advanced units, or you can use late game infrastructure unlocks to improve other things.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, playing the first game as, aiming for a science victory is also a very good way to make sure that you can win a military victory in the second half of the game.
It's like you could probably pick a victory condition late if you're just playing well generally.
On a low difficulty
aside
level,
from like
sure.
religious would be awkward. Like if you haven't founded a religion, good luck with that. But
But
For the others.
diplomatic, domination, and even science you could probably come into later. Because you could just be trying to play well, and you would still have all the base you need for those three. It's religious and culture that you really have to start thinking about early, especially super early with culture.
Well, that being said, if you really want to win culture or whatever, if the other person doesn't have very many cities, they're going to have a hard time resisting you.
or any cities.
Yeah, well, you would, if you want to specifically win culture, you would have to hold off on conquering the last capital or something. But yeah, it's pretty hard for like one nation with one city and like a smoldering empire otherwise to resist culture or prevent you from winning science first.
Yes, but that's effectively domination victory before you even get there, so,
That is true. However, I'm just saying, like, if you want to pick a victory condition late or switch, it's still there for you, as long as you're playing well generally.
We've all been
you can make it happen.
wrong towards a science victory, and you see that somebody else is building spaceports, and you're like, oh no, you're not allowed to do that. I'm going to space, not you.
Yeah. That's a classic since space victory was added. You could do it in Civ 4 as well.
You could do it in Civ 1. They launch their spaceship, go sack their capital. Quick.
Oh, I forget when they added the time delay thing after launch.
That was there in the beginning, I think.
For some of the games, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think Civ 4, originally it wasn't. They added that. Where you, like, once they launched, you could conquer their capital and interrupt it.
Well, they also added...
I was there right away.
They also added the thing where, like, you could build additional spaceship parts. So it might be that maybe the delay was in there from vanilla, and then the extra spaceship parts that could speed up the rocket were added later. Or, yeah, maybe both were added later.
I think you needed a quote-unquote full ship initially, and then you just won on the spot. Whereas in, like, BTS, you could get it down to 10 turns by building more thrusters and such, and a second engine, which wasn't usually worth it.
But yeah, so next up is they recommend building line infantry and cavalry. And, I mean, by build, do they actually mean, like, build new ones? Because hopefully if you're playing well, you will have older units that you can upgrade into
much faster
and not have to build them.
Well, building more lets you open up additional fronts.
But I don't know, does Civ 6 have new unit types that unlock in the Renaissance and Industrial, or was that only Civ 5 that did that?
I think you get new unit types at least somewhat in every era. Not in a particular category, but you get at least like 1 or 2 new units every era in 6.
Yeah, well, and the Industrial also starts to, well, maybe not the Industrial, but like modern era starts to introduce things like anti-tank and AA and stuff like that as well, so...
Yeah, there's
like if you have academies, like you can straight up build corps and armies later on, and they'll get the XP bonuses, so they'll level up pretty quickly. So like you take your initial guys and you have them on one front or whatever, and then you can just like build out more troops, so you can fight more than one enemy at once.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. That's a few items down.
Well, we're on build new military units. You build the units. Yeah. That's one thing.
Mackie, did you have something else to say about units?
Oh, just that you might still have your old original defensive army, and that's you can upgrade those, and that's a little bit quicker, and a little bit cheaper if you've got all the reasons for it.
Defensive?
Yes, Phil. Sometimes other people attack you. You know.
Well, yeah, Phil. The army that you put in another player's territory to defend that territory from being recaptured by that enemy.
Oh, okay. I understand now. Thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. Glad I could help. All right, so yeah, power plants. Anything to say about power plants? Again, this doesn't say anything about like where to put your power plants or what types of power you should use. It just kind of offhand mentions, and they consume resources. Nothing about the range or how how placing them strategically could allow multiple cities to benefit from a single city's power plant. None of that stuff in here.
More production's a good thing, so getting more of that's helpful.
They're not build that army. Phil wants to build faster.
They're not wrong. You should build power plants when they become available. But yeah, it's a little bit more strategically nuanced than just build them.
Yeah.
Considerations like how much coal do I actually have to run coal plants? Oh, oops, I don't have any coal. Welp.
Yeah, another thing that would happen to me often is if you're doing really well in tech. Your tech can easily outpace your production capabilities. So there have been plenty of games of Civ 6 for me where I have already unlocked things like, the more efficient, renewable energy resources, like before I've even got to the point of like mass adopting, coal and oil power plants. Like maybe I built like one coal power plant as soon as they were unlocked, but then it's like, oh, I've already got hydroelectric plants, so I'm just going to build dams now, and now I've got clean energy that doesn't require a resource. And, shortly after that, I've got solar farms and wind farms, and that's something that could very easily happen if you're very far ahead on the tech tree.
It also depends on where your cities are placed and what districts you've been prioritizing and such.
Right, which of course this article also says nothing about. There's no mention of, hey, maybe earlier in the game you should look at placing your cities by rivers so that you can build hydroelectric plants and get clean power that doesn't cost a resource, so that resource is free to build more military units and doesn't, cause climate change. But again,
I'm sure when we get the medieval and Renaissance guides, there will no doubt be information on district placement.
You're right. That must be the ones they're thinking really extra hard about. All right. So next up is, I think, the actual one actually genuinely good tip, because I do feel like a lot of players undervalue railroads, and there's probably a decent chunk of people who I think just flat out forget that military engineers are a thing, because you unlock them way earlier than railroads. So yes, do build railroads. Railroads are quite good. I think in every Civilization game, railroads are pretty good.
They got busted in some of them.
And used to, it upgraded automatically when you got the tech. You didn't have to go out and build in the previous Civs, So
yeah, and it's in Civ 6, your roads do that automatically as well. So I could easily see somebody being like, I unlocked the tech. How come all my roads didn't turn into railroads? Because again, they forget that the military engineer is there. And then there's also a lot of confusion online. I still see forum posts and Reddit posts about this even today, what is it, 6 years since the game came out, where people being like, oh man, military engineers only have 2 charges? How am I ever supposed to build a railroad network? And it's like, well, that's because military engineers can actually build roads or can build railroads without exhausting charges, which I don't think this guide mentions either. So that's a very important thing to remember, is one military engineer can build your entire railroad network. Although, it might not be a bad idea to have 2 or 3 of them so that you can start in opposite ends and meet in the middle.
I was going to say, it would take a while.
Yeah, or alternatively, start in the middle and go outwards.
Yeah, in both directions.
Yeah, sorry, Mackie, were you saying something?
No. I was agreeing with you about that. I was also going to say, if you tried to do it with one, you might have monorails by the time you finish with the regular rails.
Yeah. Yeah, they can take a while.
You'd want to prioritize the paths that your units are most likely to take.
But also, thankfully, in Civ 6, they do it instantly in one turn. It's not like older Civs where, they gotta work away on building that railroad for 5-6 turns, unless you stack.
You could have a pair of them, upgrade roads to railroads in Civ 4.
But Civ 5, you couldn't stack workers, so
yeah,
you just had to have a line of them and all working on each segment of the railroad at the same time if you wanted it to go quicker. So
Civ 5 charged you for roads and railroads too.
That's true, and
you wanted to be pretty careful. And you wanted them, but you didn't want too many of them.
Right. Well, and one thing that they do warn you about in this post is they do warn you that each segment of railroad that you build, I think maybe contributes 1 coal's worth towards the climate change mechanic.
Good.
Yeah. So there is also that to consider. Personally, I would prefer if using the railroads was the thing that cost coal and not them just existing, but I guess it's an abstraction for all the freight trains and stuff that are going through. And
presumably you're not just gonna have rails that a nation is building and then nobody uses them.
Yeah,
I think it's reasonable as an abstraction.
Yeah, no, it's reasonable, but there could be an additional cost maybe for actually moving large armies across them. But whatever, that's a topic for another day. So next up is
not that much compared to freight in terms of usage.
Pollution, yeah.
Yeah, but then again, you do pay 1 coal or one oil per turn for having a tank in the game as well, whether it's being used for anything or not. So
yeah,
I guess that's the cost of that tank just traveling on railroads and doing nothing.
You need it for infantry too, which is
Yeah, there's some weird stuff like that with resource consumption and the climate change mechanic. So anyway, next up we've got expand housing with neighborhoods. Gosh, is that even a necessary thing to do? Like,
No.
No. There's plenty of other districts and buildings within districts you can get more housing from. And some of your improvements also naturally add housing. Very rare that you even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can do it, but I wouldn't put it as a point of emphasis.
if you have like a really large city that is actually like up on the cap of housing, then sure, yeah, build some neighborhoods. But I mean, if your city, sorry, I got a crying baby in the background. But if your cities aren't that big to begin with, then you don't even need the housing. I don't think does having an excess of housing increase the growth rate of the city?
Only if you're getting near your cap, in which case you take a penalty. So, like, it will remove a penalty, and in that sense, it will increase it if you have the penalty. That said, like, what are you putting your workers on, and how many more workers until you're running out of things where they're helping you a lot? As you get diminishing marginal utility there. Like, you don't want to, like, work a ton more food just to work the same number of productive tiles or something. Like, you want to be working productive tiles or, like, have them... Well, specialists kind of suck in Civ 6. They're nowhere near what they used to be.
Specialists really suck in Civ 6. I don't
So,
know.
like,
Does
I don't know
anyone
about
even
building
use
housing
them?
for that.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even give you great people points anymore, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, the only time I ever have specialists in Civ 6 is if I am literally working every tile that the city can work, and there's nothing for extra citizens to do except be specialists.
And, like, a lot of these tiles are just, like, food. And you're only working food insofar as that it's, like, letting you also work more productive things.
And even if, like, the specialist could produce even just one food, like half as much food as it requires to feed themselves, that would be a huge upgrade and maybe make them worth using. Because
That or just give them competitive yields.
yeah, I mean, like, I think if you put like a specialist in like a campus, it's like what, like 2 science or something like that?
Yeah, it's been a long time. Like, anytime I've looked at it, I'm like, ugh.
I mean,
When
like,
you can,
2 science is good, but at the cost of not producing any food or production, like, I don't know, it's rarely ever worth it.
unless you have one of those mega type cities where you're on a river and you've got floodplains and you've got the special bonus food resources, then maybe you can do that because you have so much excess food. But
Good
There's
luck coming
also-
up with the production to set up the neighborhoods and all that to get your
Yeah.
housing cap high enough and to grow enough pop to work enough surplus food to then finally run the specialists. Jeez, takes ages.
Oh, oops, I think I skipped over the cores and fleets. Do we have anything
yeah,
else to say about cores and fleets, Phil?
I mean, concentrating your ability to fight in a 1 unit per tile game is good. So once you can do it and fight more effectively, you should. Obviously, you're production gated there, but you can make that work. So yeah. Make cores and armies.
And this post does point out that I think the maintenance cost and upgrade cost for cores and armies and fleets and armadas is less than, the cost it would be to maintain and upgrade all of those units individually. One thing that they don't mention, which is a very important thing, is be careful about what units you attach to which other units. Because the way that the mechanic works is when you combine units into a core or into a fleet, the resulting fleet has the experience and promotions of the highest promoted unit that was used to create the core or fleet.
Yes,
So
you want to combine like green
Yeah.
units with advanced ones,
Right.
not too advanced ones.
Ideally, you should either be combining unpromoted units with a well-promoted unit to create a core fleet, or you should be building new units from scratch, preferably in the preceding era when they're cheaper to build, and then you can just upgrade them, and then join them into the cores and fleets, which is again something that that this article does not touch on at all.
But yeah, once you've got armies and like some promotions and generals and all that stacked, you can easily fight stuff that's an era in front of you.
Yeah, what you absolutely do not want to do is you do not want to take your 2 highest promoted elite units and combine them together into a single core.
Yeah, no, you just lose on that.
Definitely do not do that. It is not going to make your unit doubly as effective. In fact, your fighting force will then be, halved. All right, well then, yeah, number 1 for the industrial era is archaeologists and artifacts. And again, what is the order of this? How is that the number 1 most important thing to do?
Parentheses, if you're going for a cultural victory?
Yes. But honestly, like, for not really many other reasons. I mean, it's not bad to have that stuff to put in your museums, right? Because it generates culture and tourism, and those yields are decent to have. But, like, archaeologists...
Get you your corps and armies faster.
Archaeologists are expensive to produce. So unless you are, like, buying them with faith or something like that, if you're not going explicitly for a culture victory, like, there's probably better things for you to be doing.
Well, it depends. Like, if you are on a conquest spree, you can probably spare the production because you have so much of it.
Yeah, if you already have all your units, trained and out in the field somewhere, then and you've got nothing else to do with your production, sure, fine.
Well, the more cities you capture, like, the more you can spare some of your productive resources on other things that further grow you.
Oh,
and this is just one of those things that, like, that makes you stronger still. Because, like, you still have your first, like, 5 cities building military units if you want. Honestly, it's not necessary, but you could. And then, like, your 6th city could make an archaeologist, and you're really not being set back that much as a percentage. And now you can improve the rate at which you're getting corps and armies. Probably armies. And that helps. Like, there's no reason not to do it. Like, you're not compromising your military frontage.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, even if that 6th city is going to take 20 turns to build an archaeologist, like, whatever.
You get it eventually, yeah. But you probably can, like, faith buy or whatever, too.
All right, Phil, you want to take us into the next era?
Oh boy, information era. So I'll read us through them and then we can talk about it. Build solar and wind farms. Research nuclear fusion. Unlock the last available governments. Use World Congress sessions wisely. Okay. Laser focus on space projects. Keep working towards final victory requirements.
Unless you were doing anything other than space, because apparently you're too busy laser focusing on space projects.
Yeah, apparently. So, like, I can broadly agree with a couple of these. Like, yeah, just like you were in the ancient era, you should probably still be considering how you're going to win the game. That's okay. I mean, as opposed to using them unwisely, sure, use World Congress sessions wisely.
Well, that's a weird one, too, because the player has so little control over what happens in the World Congress. Like, there's not really all that much wise that you can do with it, because you can't propose specific resolutions. The things that come up are pseudo-random based on the era. Like, and the points that you use in the World Congress, like, aren't used for anything else in the game. Right, like, this isn't like
just win Diplo
Beyond Earth, right, where you had those diplomatic points that you could actually use for diplomacy with the other leaders, right? Where there would be an actual opportunity cost to just dumping all your diplomatic points into some World Congress session vote.
Apparently, we're getting fusion tech in the information era, like, as one of our early priorities.
Yeah, you should have gotten that sooner because, you want to conquer faster. You know what conquers really fast? Big booms. Even Grim would agree with fusion being good.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like by this point in the game, like,
if you're in the information
you're going
era,
through the AI with, like,
this,
anything.
Yeah, unlock the last available governments, and the screenshot shows the really super advanced ones that are really way far down the cultural tree, and I think I can count on maybe just my 2 hands the number of times I've had a game get deep enough for me to actually do that.
Yeah, I don't think I've used those much.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where, like, if the game lasts long enough, you're going to get those anyway, because you can't just, like, stop producing culture.
No.
Like,
at that point, that's the point where you just click on that very last, whatever, future tech or whatever, future civic thing, and just click there and just let it go. You don't even have to.
Besides, why would you run any of that when you could just run fascism?
Well, isn't there a government that's an upgrade towards fascism? Oh, I guess that there's none of them that actually have that many military.
You're not getting military production or combat strength out of any of those. So yeah, like, unless you can offset the demerits by using the wild card slots.
Well, that's negative. I thought that was a bonus, but it's not.
Or you're at the
digital
point,
democracy does not make you fight better.
or you're at the point where you don't need those anymore, because at this point you're just mopping up what's left of the opponents anyway.
Oh, in that case, it doesn't really matter though. But
Yeah, well, that's the thing about the information era in general. Like, there's so much stuff that doesn't matter because the game's already either explicitly over or decided, but you still have to click and turn another.
Unit production is like pretty beefy, and it stacks with the policy cards. So, like, if you're just trying to wrap up a game, that's one way to do it. It's just like get more units out and go clean it up.
But if you've been successful at military conquest at this point in the game by the information era, you're probably not building a whole lot of new units.
Well, it helps though, because like you're snowballing into additional fronts that you can handle rather than.
But how many fronts are left at this point in the game? I mean, if you've got multiple,
that's true.
If you've got more than maybe 2 civs to defeat at this point in the game, like you kind of are a little bit behind on that domination victory path.
Maybe, but like,
unless you can just sweep out in all directions and conquer.
If you're at that point, like your choice of government doesn't matter anymore anyway. Like, what's the
right? Well, that's kind of the underlying point. Is this is not a great, very useful tip.
Yeah, those like super late game governments, just they're good if you get them, but they're not going to change the outcome of the game.
And of course, it doesn't matter because by the next tip, you should be spending all your production on space projects.
Oh, right.
So you can't be building them on military units.
Well, maybe you really are just sieging down the last few cities, so you're just making vanity projects, I guess.
I'm almost done here. I'm just going to go to space now.
Yeah. Like maybe somebody else was trying to build space parts, and now you just do it because while you're conquering the cities to mock them. I guess technically.
Oh, that's cute. You were trying to build a moon rocket. Watch us do it faster.
If memory serves, I think the launching the satellite still reveals the entire map, right?
Yes, so just in case they put one on a one-tile island somewhere.
Or is it just researching the tech that does that? Do you actually have to build the spaceport and launch the satellite? Or do you get the whole map by just researching the tech? I forget.
I don't think you have to launch it. I don't remember having to launch it. But maybe I just explored the maps.
Yeah. In any case, that might be one reason why, even if you're going for another victory, you might want to build a spaceport and launch the satellite, or at least research the tech, if there's still parts of the map that you haven't uncovered.
I like game, you might as well pick up techs anyway, eventually. Like, you take the things that help you the most first, but then you're eventually going to research the other stuff, too.
But then, of course, it's funny. Their number one tip is try to win the game.
Yeah.
That's what you should be doing from turn 1. They do point out, though, that even this late, you can pivot to another victory. Mostly that's from something else to domination. Somebody else is getting ahead, and no, we're not having that. But
yeah, and especially at the easy to middle level difficulties, like you're probably doing well enough, and the AIs are far enough behind that yes, you could probably pivot to any victory, in the modern or information era, and still have a reasonable chance at getting to it, even if you haven't been focusing very hard on it previously.
But if they're ahead of you on another victory on the more difficult difficulty levels, pivoting to punch them in the face is always an option.
Yeah, and
quite effective too.
Yep, and in some cases it might be your only option.
Yes, it can be
if they're far enough ahead.
Oh, if you get Babylon or Korea on your map, help.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's always the only option. The other stuff is just fluff that gets you to that goal.
All right. Well, anything else anyone wants to say about these 3 articles? Hopefully we filled in enough of the gaps that the writers at GameRant left.
Other than spend 30 more minutes ordering your list so it makes a little more sense if you played Civ with guys?
Yeah, I don't know who the heck edited them into the order that they were in, but yeah, I was just going through it and I was just like, what? Like so many facepalms.
Like not in this. Yes, some of these things, but not in that order necessarily, or not in that priority necessarily.
Yeah, do that. Well, you should do that before you do that. Like, okay, whatever. I don't understand.
Yeah, it got a little crazy.
Well, hopefully moving on to something that we can hopefully understand a little bit better. Our final topic for today is a thread on Civ Fanatics. What should Civilization 7 bring back from previous installments?
Resource depletion.
Are you serious, or is that a troll?
I mean, that's realistic. There is only a certain amount of uranium on the planet in real life.
I'm just gonna blow up the planet.
Because I actually agree. I would like to see there to be more pressure in the mid to late game for civs to expand to find additional sources of resources, as opposed to just, I found my iron in the classical era. That's all I'm ever going to need.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's the whole drive of colonialism, was to find new resources. And in Civ 6, the only reason that you ever really have to be colonial is to maybe find new luxury resources. But even then, those luxury resources are basically just paying for the happiness of the new cities that you have to found to be colonial to get those resources. So it's kind of like a chicken and egg problem.
And a lot of exploration closer to the modern era was looking for oil. How many places?
You know what else we need?
What?
Vassal states.
Well, yes, it would actually be nice sometimes when you have this. You don't really want to have to go through the entirety of conquering those people. Like, could you just be my vassal now? Thank you. And it did have the mechanic previously on previous Civs where if they got strong enough, they could try to break away. Which, okay, you can try and still punch you back in the face. And there's been times in multiplayer games when that's actually been useful to be somebody else's vassal.
To end the game, yeah.
Intentionally,
well, just to see a victory
unintentionally.
screen.
Yes, that's another thing with multiplayer. Can we please have a unified victory? Can we work together more a little?
Yeah, the return of permanent alliances would be very, very nice.
Oh, it's the most annoying thing in multiplayer. You're allied with the other player, you're going to keep that, but I think it's 30 turns maybe, but you have to renew it. And it happens like right in the middle of a war when you needed access to their borders and stupid things.
Oh, yeah, and all your units just get kicked out.
Yes. It's like, that's not how it works.
I mean, yeah, it's a small adjustment, but being able to have deals in perpetuity as an option would definitely be a nice thing to have back.
Especially things like friendships and alliances. Like, I'm okay with, like, your trade agreements expiring, right? Because
I think you should still have the option to say, run this until I say otherwise, though.
Yeah, having the option would be great, but, but that's not something, like, the worst things, again, are things like the open borders, where you can where you just suddenly, out of the blue, you just get kicked out of someone else, of your ally's territory. And
against the will of that nation. Like, they don't want to kick you out, but by force it happens.
Against both players. Yeah, against both players' will.
Yeah.
And even when it's like an AI that you've signed open borders with, generally they want to keep it going because they want to snoop through your territory too. So it's like, come on, in perpetuity until I say no. Or they say no.
Yeah.
Mutual agreement until otherwise somebody goes, nope.
I'm trying to look through this thread to see if there's anything good. One thing that I actually did comment on this thread, and it was in response to, two users. One said they want naval transport units to come back. To which the next person replied, bad idea, and then complained about, all the logistics and stuff like that, which are all fair points. But I did respond saying that I do think there could be an argument for a sort of hybrid approach, where, like, you have automatic unit embarkation, which is maybe very slow and leaves those units very vulnerable, and is still, 1 unit per turn, so the more land units you have, the larger your convoy is, and therefore the harder it might be to protect. And that could potentially leave room for there to be a dedicated naval transport unit that allows stacking onto that transport, which can move faster, which can defend itself, and which can allow for more compact convoy formations that would therefore be easier to protect with your actual naval military units. So I think it's not totally unreasonable to ask for that back.
Yeah, I agree. The micro now is worse than the Civ 4 transport.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking too, is I don't remember the micro of the logistics of, like, galleys and stuff like that, and galleons being that bad in Civ 4, but what I do have very painful, vivid recollections of is every time I finish a war and I have to move my entire army to another continent, which involves, especially in Civ 6, where queued up movements can be interrupted so easily, and if it is interrupted, your unit might wander off in some random direction trying to find an alternate path, where you basically have to move every unit every turn, and then manually embark them all, and then manually move them across the water one at a time, and then disembark them all, and like that's way more tedious and way more micro than being able to just stack them all on a galleon and send that one galleon across the ocean.
Yeah.
Moving an entire carpet across the ocean, and if you decide to try and automate it, somebody stands on that one tile that a couple of them were going to, and suddenly they're like, oh my gosh, I can't go there now, where do I go?
Yeah, the ocean at least doesn't have the problem of, like, if you go into the fog of war, there might be a mountain there that causes all of your units to reroute and turn in the opposite direction.
Oh, God.
At least the ocean, you have a reasonable expectation that it's, going to be just flat land that you can, cross.
Yes, exactly.
And the toddler has much input on this as well.
The enemy has a sub that you can't see, and your units reroute.
Well, you're going to see it really quick the next turn when it starts attacking.
Oh, it might not be hostile.
Oh,
It might not even be an enemy.
allied units. Oh, that's the other one. Having to go around allied
I
units.
think, allied or neutral, like just random ships in the water could still
Can we
cost
have
great.
a way to pass through allied or neutral units without having to go route all the way around?
Or
That would be nice.
Well, I think you can pass through allied units, but I don't think you can end your turn on them. So they could still cause problems, even if you can route through them, because they block where you want to move.
Or
If the AI is carpeting, they can block a substantial percentage.
Well, I guess that
where
wouldn't be
you
one
wanna
unit per
move.
tile anymore, would it?
I also have the nightmares of remembering Civ 6 vanilla before religious units were on their own lair, and I always had to navigate all of my own units in my own territory around the 100 missionaries and apostles that Spain would just dump everywhere.
Yeah, I distinctly remember that sometimes that led to war that I would not otherwise have declared at that point in the game, just because I was too annoyed by it.
Well, there you go. See, it's a feature.
Let's see how you're preaching to me now. Let's see how you do in quote-unquote religious combat with my knight.
Let's see. One thing that came up in the thread is someone proposed bringing back wild animals from Civ 4, and that got a lot of pushback. Discuss.
Settlers get eaten by a bear.
They're just barbs, like in the Civ 6 is barbs like instantly. So what's the difference?
It's true, because that was actually one of those things where it was realistic about what the biggest danger was when people first started trying to do other settlements. It wasn't other people; it was the animals.
Yeah, and like the true start of humanity. That's true.
Yeah.
You became other humans pretty quick, but
Yeah.
you still had to respect animals. But animals were not going to like wipe out a settling party.
Well, but I don't think they did in the game either, because if I remember correctly, in Civ 4,
they can.
wild animals can't enter your borders.
No, but they can kill like a
unit
group
that's
of
outside
people.
their borders.
Yeah, they can kill settlers, and presumably settlers involve enough people to settle a city.
Okay, I misheard. I thought you said that the wild animals would kill a settlement.
No, settler.
Yeah,
I
settling
don't know.
party.
A pride of lions could be pretty hungry.
I don't think they'd willingly engage like hundreds of people.
Oh, yes.
or whatever it is that
again.
whatever it is that's making a city, it needs to be enough to like sustain growth.
They scared all the people so bad that they all just ran off into the wilderness. That's it.
Yeah, okay.
Listen,
I'll take my iron bucket of lava and throw it at them at this
This
point.
isn't Minecraft.
Now, if I throw that bucket in the lava, it'll burn up. But if I put the lava in the bucket, it's fine.
I can
I'll make this work.
I can take wild animals or leave it. I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. My only real strong opinion regarding bringing back wild animals would be that maybe they shouldn't just be like have the same flag as barbarians. As Campster pointed out in one of his errant signal videos, like it is one of those things that just dehumanizes the barbarians, that they literally are the same faction as wildlife.
Good, they're subhuman. Screw them.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Because personally, I would rather see, the base feature of the game for barbarian implementations be more in line with the barbarian clans mode from Civ 6, where each clan, each barbarian encampment was like its own faction, like with its own, kind of flavor to it. So I really hope that that is the way that barbarians are implemented, and maybe even building more off of that, as opposed to just all barbarians everywhere in the world being this one faction of subhuman sort of people that does nothing but kill things and maybe is also considered wildlife.
They're bad guys like stormtroopers or foot soldiers.
Oh, related to the boats from earlier, they bring back the idea that you risk your It's not navigation, but being able to embark on ocean tiles with a high risk, so you can try to make that crossing to another continent early. I always had fun with that. Is it going to make it? Is it going to make it? Is it going to make it? Did I find that 1 or 2 tile gap I can get across?
Roll the dice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Humankind does have that mechanic where if your naval unit that can't cross ocean ends in ocean, you get a warning that it's, quote, lost at sea, and I think it takes like 50 points of damage for each turn it ends. So it's similar to, if you remember in Civ 5, I think Carthage had its unique elephant that could end its turn on mountains, but it would take 50 points of damage if it did so. So if you did it for 2 turns in a row, the unit would die. And I like that mechanic in Humankind. Because it puts a limit, and it's also not up to a die roll. Because that's one of the things that I couldn't stand in, like, Civ 3, was that it would be up, even if you find a safe path, like, I could get it when you're first exploring, like, going there for the first time, it could be a die roll, but once you've found that safe path, or once you found a path, like, it shouldn't be up to random chance at that point, at least not as much.
Yeah, because in real life, once they knew what the route was to get to the islands in the Caribbean, they could repeat that very easily.
Yeah,
it was a rough journey, but they didn't lose as much food and morale as they did previously because they knew where they were going.
Yeah, it would still be dangerous.
Yeah. Very long traversing over ocean, like long before the Age of Sail was really like at its peak.
Yeah,
so the Vikings and before Vikings.
Well, there's the Polynesians as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would totally be okay with naval units just losing a certain number of hit points. You know, if they end their turn on ocean and aren't allowed to go on ocean.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I'm cool with that. I prefer that it not be a random die roll.
Yeah, like maybe cartography at first reduces your risk when you're going out into the ocean, and maybe there's something to do a little later that makes it permanently safe.
And even if there is an element of randomization to the amount of damage that it takes, you know, just like how there is in combat, you know, there's random, you know, your unit's not going to lose exactly 10 hit points, it might lose 9, it might lose 11. Like, I'd even be okay with that. It's just I don't want it to be like there's a 50-50 chance that the unit just dies.
No, cumulatively, think like it's anywhere, like it's going to be a random roll for like 10 to 25% of your hit points or something like that.
Yeah,
it's not going to outright kill it, but it's going to hit it.
Right, and then if I don't find land, right, I have at least the opportunity to turn back, you know, and hopefully make it back to, you know, safe coastal waters before the unit dies.
Yeah, because it's so frustrating sometimes on the more aquatic maps when you see those one-tile gaps to another continent. You're like, oh my god, you seriously think I could not put some people on boats and send them across that when I can literally see the other land?
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, just whenever you have random stuff like that, that's like all or nothing, all that really does, in my opinion, is just encourage save scumming. You know, you send your galley out into the middle of the ocean, oh, it sinks, okay, I'll just reload the turn. And now there's a 50% chance it won't sink. So something that's more consistent, you know, rules-based, I think is a better way of handling something like that. And the toddler agrees. That is
I do like that's literally 50% of the time. It works all the time.
Works all the time when you say scum.
Well, yeah, like that's a literal statement now. It's a sequence. You might think that it's not, but it's a sequence. Like 50% of the time, it works all the time because you reload until it works. So it works all the time.
Is it 50% all of the time, or all of the time 50% of the time?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my brain around that.
Yeah, we'll just go with the Uber Markler answer on that one.
I've got the beautiful mind calculus going on in the behind my head right now.
Yeah, I can see the thing in my head.
Or do any of us have our own ideas for what we'd like to see?
Oh, poisoning water supplies. That was great. Boy. We need more of that.
I think we're all in agreement, though, that we want to see spearmen be able to randomly kill tanks, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, realism, no. Sort of,
and
no.
And also,
but fun.
Whenever the water supply is poisoned, have there be a significant chance of saying that it was Sitting Bull who did it, even if he's not in the game.
It's like Gandhi and nukes.
One honest thing that I would like to say is I would like to bring back a World Congress that actually gives the player some degree of agency. Assuming that there would be a World Congress in Civilization 7, it should give players agency on what resolutions get proposed.
I understand what you're asking. We need the Apostolic Palace
Oh
back.
God.
Yes, that's what I meant. I just didn't have the words. It was on the tip of my tongue. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Phil.
Yes, I would have went only halfway through the tech tree. Sure, why not? Whoops, diplomatic victory. I'm the best.
I want to win with only one city when everybody else is triple my tech.
And this might also get some disagreement or controversy even from this group, but I would like to see the climate change and at least some of the natural disaster rules carried over into Civ 7. At least the ones that were like consistently predictable, like the river floods and the volcanoes.
As long as they're going, but as long as they're actually going to do it on different rivers and different volcanoes, so it's not the one poor player on one side of the map that gets flooded about every 30 turns and has to rebuild things.
Yeah, of course.
And so much in MP, it's not fun.
Yeah, and also, as I think Phil was getting to, with settings or sliders to disable it or change the frequency or intensity and all that stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have that, then I won't have any complaints.
And there could also even be I don't think Civ 6 had this, but I would also be okay with settings and sliders to customize the climate change mechanic to either make it slower or faster or more severe or less severe, especially for multiplayer.
What it is we as players love sliders to adjust things so we can customize Civ to the way we like to play.
Yeah, more sliders is good.
Yes.
I would also like to see, on that topic, I would also like to see more difficulty and customization options for barbarians, as opposed to either turning them on or off or raging. Like, I'd like for there to be things in between.
Yeah, like, can you adjust the curve that it starts out lower and it takes, like, maybe 20 or 30 turns before they show up and it slowly ramps into raging or something like that. If you're not
Barbarians begin the game with tanks.
Sure, you can have that as an option. Why not?
Well, in that case, I certainly hope my spears can defeat tanks.
I mean, if you want extra raging with extra raging sauce, that should be an option.
Just don't get scouted, lol.
Let's see.
I think we already talked about the nationalities, especially when you've had borders for so long, your civilization is kind of mixed up. Not 100% Babylon, not 100% here or something.
Yeah, I would like to see that sort of stuff from Civ 4 come back as well. I would also like to see things like your policy choices have more of an impact on the population and them be more reactive to your policy decisions. And yeah, it would be cool to have I have this vision in my head, and I've even thought about trying to do this as a mod for Civ 5 or Civ 6 because this goes all the way back to Civ 5, where each point of population, each little population icon actually has demographic qualities to it. They have a country of origin or descent or whatever. And then, maybe also things almost going into SimCity territory, maybe wealth levels, or if you're in a caste system, each point of population is in a caste, and depending on what caste they are, it affects the yields they get from certain tiles. And then also each point of population being able to give the player little quests the way that city-states could in Civ 5. That would improve or decrease their happiness depending on if you complete that or fail to complete it. So just little things to make it seem like your population is made up of people and those people want things. And it is your duty as their sovereign to provide those things.
They are more efficient if you provide those.
And none of these things are things that are super alien to the Civ franchise. The thing I was talking about with caste systems and stuff like that, that's very similar to what was done in colonization, right? Where each citizen in your city was actually a military unit that was of a particular type, and what type of military unit it was, or civilian unit, what type of unit it was, influenced how much it would produce. You would have lumberjack units, right?
Yeah,
that could chop woods out on the map, but you could also put them in the cities, and they would generate more production yield on your forest tiles and other stuff like that. You could have farmer citizens that would clear land and build farms, or you put them in your cities and they produce more yield, more food yield.
Yeah, you had specialists for finished products, with cloth or with making rum and stuff, that they would be, you could put a regular ordinary citizen or the indentured servants in there, and the indentured servants were better at other things than normal free citizens, but you had specialists that would produce a lot more per unit. They would take less sugar to make more rum, for example. less copy,
Right,
make
yeah.
more cloth.
And I don't know if we need something that complicated
detail, but if
for
you had, like-
Civilization, but I mean,
Yeah.
if it works, like, sure, go for it. Like, we could have, you know, the ability to create, like, manufactured luxury goods, and, you know, different citizens and infrastructure would make a city more specialized towards creating those things and potentially make them more valuable for, you know, trade or to provide more happiness or amenity to your population. I would be all for something like that. Like, again, as long as it works.
I love all these things that we're bringing back from previous Civs.
Well, for all we know, they thought of some new things to add that we haven't seen yet.
Oh, I'm sure.
And again, as I've said many times before, we actually have competition in this marketplace now in the form of other games. So I'm sure they are also looking at things that people like or dislike about humankind and, you know,
Old
tailoring
World?
their... and what? Yes, and Old World. And we have that Aura History Untold game coming out. And I think there's a few others, but I'm spacing on their names. There was At the Gates. John Schaefer's game. So, yeah, there's also not only past Civilization games to look at, but also now other games in this same market space to look at for good ideas and for bad ideas to avoid. But I think that's a topic for another episode.
Yeah, I'm gonna take us out of here. Get out! No, thank you for joining us on episode 425 in the MeInTeam, joined by MegaBearsFan.
Okay, I am like actually legit stressed out a little bit about how many new games are coming out this fall and how many of them I want to play and whether or not I'm going to have enough time to play them all. And I am just so relieved that Firaxis has not, in fact, announced Civilization 7 for release anytime this calendar year so far. Like, thank goodness, because if I had both Civ 7 and City Skylines 2 coming out at the same time, like, oh my god, I don't know how I would have time to play everything.
And Makahlua.
Who is stressing out about the hardware side of things, because this laptop that I'm running right now is not going to play Starfield. Oh boy.
Oh yeah, I also have legitimate concerns about whether or not any of my PCs will be able to play Cities Skylines 2 with a level of performance that I would like.
Yeah.
They say that the simulation is supposed to be way more efficient, even though it's simulating way more things, so hopefully it will still run around the same, you know, as the original Cities Skylines does on my computer. But, I don't know, we'll see.
Dominion 6 is coming out soon.
Yeah?
That would probably run fine on the laptop.
Yeah, you could probably play that, at least from the hardware perspective. If you want to spend like a 3 credit an hour college course worth of time learning it, then you can probably play it pretty well.
Oh dear, nope. Probably reason I haven't before now.
It is fun though. Like you don't need that kind of investment to enjoy it. You just need that kind of investment to be like reasonably competitive in the PvP scene.
I think I've enjoyed more watching people's Let's Plays that happen occasionally.
I've won a few games in multiplayer now. It's not impossible. It can be done.
And if I could remember Candace's list of copyrights, it would go right here.
Yep.
Civilization 3, 4, 5, Beyond Earth, and 6 sound clips. Copyright Take-Two Interactive. Copyright the PolyCast at thepolycast.net.